Stay tuned because I'm going to be showing you how to make 6 different fabric gift bags for the holidays or whatever occasion you want to make them for. Hi everybody, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia, and today I'm going to show you how to make 6 different fabric gift bags. I cannot wait to show them all to you. Some are a little bit trickier, some are super. One is ridiculously easy. Let me give you a sneak preview of what we're going to do. We're going to be making this adorable mini tote. How cute is that? We're going to be making a wine carrier, a wine bottle carrier, or whatever bottle carrier. It's a quilted one, really easy to make. I have 2 drawstring bags. This one is the first one, very easy. It's at the top. This is so easy to put together, you won't believe it. And it's great in any size. I have this drawstring, which is a little bit more decorative. You have the ribbon actually goes through the bottom, and you can use a couple different fabrics. I have this really adorable gift card holder. It is so easy to make with a hook and loop closure. The one I do in the video, and I've already filmed the video, I sort of messed up a little bit, but I promise you it's really cute if you follow the directions and not do what I did. But you'll see what I'm talking about when you watch the video. So there's this one. And last but not least is a little treat bag, which will take you all of like 5 minutes maybe to make. And you can make a whole bunch of these for a party. It's the easiest bag you will ever make for a treat bag. These bags are fantastic for the holidays. Hey, that's why I'm wearing my Christmas tree sweater right now. But you know what? Any fabric will do. You can change this up for absolutely any occasion. Birthdays, 4th of July, just a housewarming, whatever you want to do. That's what's so great about these fabric bags. The tutorials for all of these projects can be found over on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. And I have one for every single one of them. So it makes it easier. Sometimes people like to look at the written tutorial as well as the video. The link is in the description of the video. So let's get started. Alright, so to do this first bag, this is the drawstring with the strip sort of a couple inches down from the top of the bag. This is what you're going to need. You're going to need 2 pieces of outer fabric, and in this case I think I'm going to use the white candy canes. 8 by 10 inches, 2 pieces of that, cut 8 by 10 inches. That's for the outside. For the lining, you need 2 pieces, cut 8 by 10 inches. Now again, remember with all of these bags, you can make these any size you want. I just think this is it's a little bit smaller, number one, to film it on camera, but also it's just a nice sort of gift bag size if you're, for a smaller gift in this case. Then you need those, I call them the strip holders. It's kind of like it forms like a channel, and you're going to put that sort of on the outside. It adds just another little decorative touch. You need 2 pieces of that, and those are cut 2.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And then you need some ribbon. I like to cut a nice long piece of ribbon. You can also use fabric and make your own sort of pull with it, but I think the ribbon is kind of pretty. I like a long one. You can always cut it shorter once you put it in the bag, so you see how long, see what kind of length you want. But I like it because you can put a nice bow in it. And so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew around the edges of these the outside and the lining pieces. So you're going to line these up right sides facing. And let me get that going nice and even. And you just want them again right sides facing. So anyway, I'm going to sew the left side, bottom, and the right side, leaving the top open. And I want to back stitch at both these sides because you will be sort of turning these inside out and you don't want anything to tear. So again, here, here, and here. So I've sewn across here. I used a little bit more than a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and now I'm going to do the lining. So the lining's a little bit different, and again you're going to line them up right sides together. You're going to sew along the 3 edges, but then here's the difference, and it's a very important one. You're going to leave a gap. Let me just line these up better. So here's the lining all lined up, right sides facing. If I can pull them apart, let me just show you. There you go. Now what you're going to do is you're going to sew all 3 sides. However, and this is the big difference, on the bottom you're going to leave a gap 2.5 to 3 inches, and you definitely want to backstitch here and here, because this is where you're going to turn that bag right sides out, and you definitely want to make sure that that's nice and secure because it could easily tear open. Alright, so here's that piece sewn on the edges, and then here is that gap I left in the bottom, just so you can see what it looks like, about 2.5, 3 inches. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to box these corners. And by boxing the corners, it's going to be able to stand up a little bit nicer when you have something in it. To box your corners is very easy. You're going to pull this apart. I'll show you again how to do it. Here it is flat again. Let me move this. You're going to do this on both the lining and the outer piece of section. And you're going to pull this apart so you have both sides open. And you're going to it forms like a point, like so. You just make sure it's nice and pulled together. Just so you can see it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to measure about 1 inch. I don't make a big box corner. This is a small bag. And again, you can play with this. If you want a bigger box corner, it would be wider, but it would be shorter. I just like this little one. So I measure in about 1 inch. Okay, you might want to press it. I don't bother pressing it. It's just another step. So from that point that you form, I will measure, you know what, I'll probably measure about 1.5 inches, I think, actually. You don't want to go past, of course, that opening that you put in the bottom. So let's see, I'm just going to line it up about 1.5 inches from that point, okay, and I'm just going to mark it, because you're going to sew on that line, and that's going to help you box those corners. And I'm going to do that on the other side, too, of the bottom of the bag. I also try and line up one of the lines on the ruler with the seam that I just sewed on the bottom, just so it's a little bit straighter, so it's nice and straight and even. That'll help guide you. And again, mark the line. And now I'm going to take this over the machine and sew there, and then on the other side that we did a minute ago. Alright, so there is the boxed corner. Here you can kind of see it. Hopefully the red probably doesn't show up so well. I'm going to clip away those threads again, and that'll help sort of let it stand up. That's sort of hard to see. And you're going to repeat that on the outside piece as well. So I'm going to do that really quickly. Okay, so I've boxed the corners on both of these pieces. And I'm going to trim off that excess. You don't need that excess in the corners. You can leave it if you want. It's up to you. I like to get rid of it. All right, corners have been snipped. And now comes the fun part. So we have the outside of this bag. This is the outside part. You're going to turn that right sides out. And there you can really see that, the boxed corner. It looks really nice. Just adds a nice little finishing touch to this bag. Okay, so you're going to do that. You're going to keep this one with the right sides facing each other for right now. And now you're going to insert the outside part into the lining. Okay, and then you're going to line these up. I like to match those seams. And I'm just going to use clips here. I don't always use clips. It depends on my mood, but you're going to clip all the way around or pin all the way around the top edge, lining it up nice and evenly. Okay, so here we have it's all clipped together, pinned together, whatever you want to do, and now you're going to sew about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch around the top edge, making sure to leave it open. And that's why I like the free arm on this machine that I have. Just going to sew all the way around it. All right, here it is. I think I forgot to mention, you definitely want to backstitch at the beginning of the end, the beginning and the end of when you're sewing around the top. Now comes the magic, and you're going to turn this in right sides out, and that's why that hole is so important in the lining. You're just going to pull out the outside. It's always like magic. It's like, whoo, how did that happen? No matter how many bags I make, it just surprises me that it works. And that's just me. All right, so next thing you want to do before you do anything else is you're going to seal that opening, you know, that 2.5, 3-inch opening that you left in the lining. You can go over and press this really quickly if you want, or you can just sew it together. It kind of forms a natural fold over. You just want to fold over those edges. Let me just show you on one side. Fold it over about, you know, about 3/8 of an inch, or whatever your seam allowance you used. I used about a 3/8 inch. It kind of naturally folds. You can even just finger press it on both sides. Let me just show you maybe one more time so you can see it. And that way you have a nice clean, there we go, just a nice clean seam on the bottom of the lining, and so nothing falls through to the inside of the bag. And I'm just going to do that really quickly. All right, that's all sewn closed. Snip it up. And now you're going to just carefully just push that lining into the bag. We're getting there. Now this next part is the trickier part, because you're putting that sleeve on this, or that, you know, that strip of fabric. But first you want to fiddle with this a little bit, and just, I would press it. At this point I do press it just to make sure everything's nice and even. But there you go. There you can see the inside. I like to, the top is nice and even. Now this is an optional step. I do it just because I think it adds a nice finishing touch. First off, I'm going to press the lining in so it's nice and even to the top. And then what I do is I do sew a nice top stitch around the outside, just 1/8 of an inch. I think it kind of adds a little bit. It helps actually keep the lining in the bag as well. And it just adds another decorative touch. You could make a decorative stitch, maybe stars or something pretty like that. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go press this first, and then just sew a very scant 1/8 of an inch top stitch around the top of the opening. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is put that little strip on, about like an inch or 1.5 inches down, depending on where you like to put it. You don't want it too low, or then you cut off half your bag. But anyway, let's make these strips. So these were the strips I cut earlier. I pressed them. I pressed each end in about 1/4 of an inch. You can see that. And then I pressed each of the long ends in about 1/4 of an inch or so. You might need to change that end if it's a little bit too long, depending on what seam allowances you used. But you're going to pin one on this side. Well, first, excuse me, I forgot the most important step. You want to measure down and pull all those threads away. I don't know why I have so many threads in this fabric. You're going to measure down from the top edge where you want the top of that strip to be. So maybe 1 inch. I'd probably do 1 inch, maybe even, I think I'm going to do 1.5 inches. So I put my 1.5 inch line on the top of there, and I'm just going to get my pencil, my marking pencil, and I'm not going to do a lot. I don't want to do too much because I'm probably going to try and cover that up. I just two little marks there, and then I'm going to pin this. And for this one, I may even pin it just over it so you don't see that marking. And just make sure everything's folded under. I'm going to just get it started here, and that it's nice and even with the top. And see, this is a little bit too long, so I'm going to have to fold over those edges a little bit. Not a big deal. It's kind of sort of hit or miss. I may even just finger press it a little bit. It's a very forgiving project. And again, it's nice. It's, you know, it's a bag. All right, let's try that again. So I'm going to start it at this edge, at that seam, at that side seam. All right, and I'm just going to pin that in I like to pin at the edge so all those folded in sides are contained, so nothing flops out when you're sewing. Okay, and then you're just going to bring it over, just following that little line that we drew. Probably could have used some starch when I pressed this, but I didn't, so we're just going to do it this way. Make sure you don't pin it closed. Alright, here we go. And then, fingers crossed, there's that seam. I'm going to bring it around, and that is pretty good. Yeah, I'll take that. So I just had to fold over that one edge, just adjusted it a little bit. Again, this is a little fidgety, but you know what? It's a pretty bag, and people love getting bags like this, especially if you have like quilty friends, because they can use the bag or they can take it apart and use the fabric later, like if you're a scrap quilter or something. And then just pin that on, trying to keep all that nice and pressed. Yeah, definitely should have used, I would actually recommend using some starch so these sort of strips don't keep flopping open like they are with me. But my starch is upstairs in the laundry room, and I don't feel like going up there right now. So, there's one side, and now I'm going to pin it on the other side. Okay, phew, that is always really fidgety part. It's a pain. That's the biggest pain of this bag is to do that part right there. So now what you're going to do, you're going to take it over to your machine, and you're just going to sew 1/8 of an inch on each side of this along the whole side. You don't want to close up those corners because that's where the ribbon's going to come through. Alright, so that is now on, and now we are to the last part of this bag. To do that, there are all kinds of different ways, but I use the old tried and true safety pin, and you're just going to feed it through. Luckily this is not a big bag. A bigger bag would be a bigger pain, and you're just going to, I pin the safety pin to the ribbon, and I'm just going to feed it through. So there we have, the ribbon is in it. Again, I made a really long ribbon. You can trim it down, make it longer, whatever you want. There you can see how the bag looks. And the last thing you want to do is you're just going to tie it up. You might even want to put like a knot in the edge of this or something if you don't want it to slip through. And then to tighten it, it just pulls tight. It's like a nice little drawstring, so you have a nice little bag. You can put something fun in it, some baubles, some candy, you know, whatever, a nice little gift. Depending on the fabric you use, you know, be cute like Matchbox cards or something, or, you know, for somebody. And then you're just going to tie your ribbon in your bow. So here's how to make this bottle carrier. This is another fun one. It's a quilted bag carrier, very easy to make. Has a few steps. Some of the bags in this video you're going to notice are really quick. Some take a little bit longer. This one takes just a little bit longer. So for this one, you're going to need an outside fabric, one piece cut 13 by 13, a lining piece cut 13 by 13, a piece of batting, and I use a nice thin batting for this one. You don't want it too thick, depending on how big the bottle is or how thick the bottle is. But again, cut 13 by 13. And then you need, put those aside, you're going to need 2 strips for the handles. And the strips are cut 2.5 inches by 10 inches wide, and you need 2 of those. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to quilt this fabric. We're going to make a little mini quilt, little teeny tiny bag quilt. So you're going to flip over that lining piece of fabric with the wrong sides facing up. Then you're going to line your batting up on top of that. Smooth it out nicely. If you had fusible batting, I don't have enough left for this project. That'd be a really good one for this one. And then you're going to put your outside fabric, your outer fabric. And I love this plaid. Isn't this pretty for the holidays? So here's your little quilt sandwich, and then you're just going to quilt it as desired. Okay, so here you can see it. I just did straight lines down. I didn't even do a crosshatch in this case. You can see here on the back what it looks like. I'm going to trim this down to 12.5 inches square. Alright, so this is quilted and it's trimmed down to 12.5 inches square. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half, right, so these sides meet just like so. I'm off a little bit here, but it's no big deal. It's all going to be covered up with your seam allowance. And then you're going to sew along here and along here using about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I like a little bit larger, but you want to make sure that bottle fits too. So you're going to sew along here, these two pieces. Remember, this is the outside of it, and then along the bottom as well. Whoops, you can't see that. Along the bottom as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to box these corners, and I did this in the first bag as well, but I'm going to show you again. So you're going to pull the two sides apart. This one's harder to do. You're just going to pull these apart, and you're going to form like a point. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, and you're just going to make a nice point, and then you're going to measure in. Because it's quilted, this one, and it's more narrow, it's a little bit trickier to do. So there you can see, this is the lining, remember. There's that point that's formed, and you're going to get your ruler, and I measure 1 inch from that point. And I'm going to draw a line, and I use the seam to help me make a straight, so it's straight across. And just use a marking tool to mark a line there. You can hopefully see it right there. And you're going to sew right along that drawn line. And you're going to do that on the other corner as well. Alright, so I've boxed those corners. Here's what they look like. And now you're going to turn this bag inside, or right sides out, I should say. And there you can see those nice boxed corners. I didn't even trim those. It adds a little bit more strength, especially because there's going to be a bottle in this. It just gives you a little bit more strength. On the other bag, I did trim them off. You can decide what you want to do. Remove all those threads, and then you're going to fold this top edge over about 1 inch, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And I fold it over all the way. It is bulky because this is quilted. It's going to be a little bulky. And then it might, sorry for the noise, it might help to pin it just so you get an idea. It's another nice thing about the stripes is it helps you even out that top. And just pin around. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it again, because if you just sewed it on the top like this, you'd have this raw edge, which isn't, necessarily the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. So you're going to fold it over again. I just fold it over on top of itself. And so that's why I didn't clip too much. So now you have like a double fold, and now you have that nice edge. And now I'm going to re-clip, and I'm going to do that all the way around. So here it is. It's nice and even. I like the way it looks. I'm going to sew in just probably about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You want to make sure you grab that inside. Here's what it looks like on the inside. I should show you that. See how it folds it in like that, and you have that double fold, so you have a nice edge. And you're just going to sew across there. I'm going to say maybe a 1/2 inch seam allowance down, just as long as you catch that bottom edge of that. Alright, so this is nicely finished, and the next thing we're going to do is make our handles. Alright, so here's how I folded these in half and pressed them. You press them in half, and then you fold, so there you can see the half line, and then you fold each long side into the center up to that line, that center pressed line, and then you're going to fold it in half again and press it, and now we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch along both sides of both of these strips, and that'll be some nice handles for you. Alright, so here are my strips, and now what I'm going to do is hopefully you can see this. First thing I'm going to do is stitch down. I'm going to fold these over and just do a quick stitch across here because I want to have a nice, not a raw edge on that, a finished edge. So I forgot to film that up close, but anyway, what I did is I folded it over, and you can see that I just did a quick stitch across it to secure it. Now what you're going to do is you are going to put these straps with that raw side facing the lining, and this is where you're going to play a little bit, and you're just going to sort of clip or pin these to the inside. And I do one first, and depending on where I like it and where I want it to be, and then I'll pin the other, I'll sort of copycat the other one. So it does require a little fidgeting. So there we go. There's the handle on one side, and this is that side seam here. So you don't want to put the handle there. You want to put it on this side. And now we're going to place the other one. And you're just going to, let's see if you can see it better like that. Use that clip. You may have to sort of play with this a little bit. You can also use pins. Okay, so here's my first pass at it. I can already tell this one's maybe a little bit longer, although it's actually pretty even, actually. What do you think? I think actually it's not bad. Let me stand it up. Now, of course, it's hard for you to see. Yeah, this one's a little bit longer. So let me just shimmy this one a little bit so it's a little bit longer. That looks more even. Let's see, I'm going to stand it up, and again, it might be easier. Let me just tilt it a little bit so you can see it. Yeah, that's much more even. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I am just going to stitch this. You might do a big X or a box with an X in it, just so this is nice and secure, so when you're sewing it, when you have that bottle in there, it doesn't go, the straps don't break and the bottle goes everywhere. Alright, here it is. The handles are stitched on. It is ready for gift giving. Put in your favorite bottle of wine or something else. It fits a nice bottle, just sort of a standard size bottle of wine. Not those real big ones, but it's really cute, really festive. Here's another really easy drawstring bag, and before I start sewing and showing this, look at this gorgeous nutcracker fabric. It's Alexander Henry. I don't think it's in print anymore, but I just love it so much. But I digress. The piece of fabric you're going to need is 11 inches by 28. Again, this is very easily tailored to any size you need. Check out the gift you're wrapping if you know what it is, and kind of estimate it from there. But this makes a nice sort of medium-sized bag. If you want it bigger, go bigger. You can make these any size you want. They're so easy to do. So the first thing and you need ribbon. Excuse me, I forgot the ribbon. You need ribbon. I use a longer piece. Let's see, let me measure it real quick. It's about 28 inches. You could do it much longer if you want like a bigger bow or something like that. So I'm going to put that aside. So the first thing you're going to do is you press your fabric, and then you're going to fold in and sew top stitch. In fact, I would press this before I sewed it, 1/4 inch on the outside along all 4 sides. You're just going to finish all 4 sides of this bag. Alright, so here I have folded it in half lengthwise, And you can see here where I had folded over those edges just about 1/4 inch, and I top stitched it down just to get a nice finish on the inside. And then what I did is I folded these over, both edges. Let me show you this one and this one, because that's going to be where that ribbon's going to go through. And you're going to stitch this down. And I did mine, let me measure it for you, just about a little bit over 1 inch. You can make this larger or smaller depending on your ribbon size. It's up to you. But I did it just maybe, I'm going to say, maybe 1.25 inches is what I folded these over. And then I just folded it in half and pressed it here too. So the first thing you're going to do, without sewing the two pieces together, is you're going to stitch down these folded over flaps along the long edge. Alright, so I've stitched these down. So I'm stitching there so that you have the slot for the ribbon to go into. Now again, this is right sides together, and now what you're going to do is you're going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance from the bottom up to here. Don't sew that opening closed. That's really important to remember, and I have done that before. You kind of get to, you know how you're sewing along and kind of start daydreaming or something. It's very easy to just keep going, and I highly recommend, excuse me, back stitching here, and you definitely want to back stitch here as well. And you're going to do it on this side and down this side. Okay, so here you have it. It's all sewn up. The edges, it's all back stitched everywhere. You have the opening for your ribbon. All you're going to do now is turn it right sides out. I didn't even clip the corners, so you get nice sharp corners. You can do that. You could box the corners if you wanted. For this bag, this is just a very easy bag. Quick and easy, and it's a great way to use up some fabric that you might have. And especially like this awesome nutcracker fabric. And now we're just gonna, it's all nice, corners are pointed out. You might even want to give it a press at this time. It's gonna get wrinkled up anyway, as you can imagine. We're gonna put in our ribbon. So I need my ribbon, and I need my handy dandy safety pin. You might have a tool for this. It's very easy. And you're just gonna feed it through. Okay, so here I gotta watch. This ribbon's a little bit shorter than I normally would do it, so I don't want to pull it back in. That would be great. So there's my ribbon. I'm gonna take off the safety pin, and then you might want to put a knot on the end or whatever, and then you're just gonna draw it closed. Just like you're tying it, you might want to, you know, knot the ends of the ribbon in there. See how it just ties it really together? And see how much ribbon then I have left over? Can make a cute bow. Ta-da! I mean, that took, now with videotaping it takes longer, but that probably took like all of 10 minutes. I mean, and they're so cute. And again, any size you want to make, you can make little ones, bigger ones, you know, whatever your heart desires. Okay friends, this is going to be the easiest bag, hands down, of this whole set of 6 bags I'm going to show you how to make today. It's ridiculously easy. You need one piece of fabric that is 6.5 by 20 inches, give or take. Again, you can make these bigger or smaller. This isn't really good for a heavier gift or anything like that. It's good for little things, and that's why it's really good for being a treat bag. So you need one piece that's 6.5 by 20, and then you need just a strip of fabric that is, let me check my measurements, 1.5 by about 15 inches. Again, larger or smaller. The first thing you want to do is you are going to fold it in half, right sides together. And I would give it a press, or you can finger press, whichever you want, get all those fuzzies off. I mean, you can see I didn't even cut this edge, because you'll see what I'm going to do here in a second. You do need pinking shears for this. Again, optional, but the pinking shears I'm going to use on the top edges. and that'll help with fraying. Again, totally optional, but because fabric frays so easily, that's what I like to do. And you are going to press this, and then you are going to sew along this edge 1/4 inch and along this edge a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And but before that, I am going to cut this top edge off with the pinking shears to give it a little bit of stability. All right, so both sides have been sewn. Here's your opening at the top. You're going to turn it right sides out. You can even, if you don't even have to clip the edges. Some people like to clip the edges. I'm not even going to worry about that. These are such simple little bags. And just poke out those corners. All right, and then literally, now, before I get going on that, you can use your pinking shears on this as well. I'm not going to do that today, but you can. It'll add a little decorative touch to it if you want. It's up to you. It's just a strip of fabric. And honestly, you put your candy in it or whatever little treat you're giving away. Here, I'm going to put, I'll put clips in mine. There you go. That'd be a fun one, wouldn't it? If you're going to a quilty party, you can give little treats in your bag. And all you're going to do is tie this up, make it look a little pretty, maybe a bow or a knot, you know, whatever you want to do. That is it. I mean, like I said, as you can tell, this is the easiest of all of the bags that I'm going to show you today. This next gift bag is a really fun one. I have made so many of these. I actually teach this in a class and people love it. They get to take home a little mini tote bag. You can make these for parties. You can, you know, just whatever you want to do for them. They're just so cute and adorable. What you're going to need for this is you're going to need outer fabric. And for the outer fabric, I'm going to use this really pretty red snowflake, or white snowflakes on red. I love that red. Wowza, is that pretty. Cut 7 by 9 inches. You need 2 pieces of that, 7 by 9 inches. For the lining fabric, and that's this cardinal, 2 pieces cut 7 by 9 inches. 2 pieces of fusible fleece. It's great stuff. And you want that also cut, both of those cut 7 by 9 inches. So basically, all of these things are all 7 by 9 inches. And then you need, for the handles, you need 2 strips cut 2.5 inches by 6 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my handles, just because that's the easy part, and I can get those done quickly. So what you're going to do is you're going to press these in half, like so. And I'll take them over the pressing, but I'm just going to show you how I do it really quickly with finger pressing. And then you can see how you get that line, sort of, you can see that line. You're going to bring over the long edge to meet that line and press that, and do that the same on this edge. Press it as well, fold it over, and then you're going to press and then sew along each edge, just a real scant 1/8 of an inch to make your handles. So again, you're going to fold it in half, fold each side over to meet that half line, and then fold it over in half and press one more time. A lot of pressing involved in this. And then you're going to sew on each side. Alright, so here are my handles. I know it's really hard to see on the black, but you can see, let me move it up a little bit, maybe you can see it closer. You can kind of see the stitching on the red part of the cardinal's body. Both sides, these are ready to go. I'm going to set these aside. So the next thing you're going to do is take your outer pieces of fabric, and you are going to adhere the fusible interfacing, or fusible fleece, to the wrong side of that outer lining outer fabric, not outer lining, outer fabric. And you're going to do that, again, follow those manufacturer's instructions. There's different products, so I don't want to tell you how to do it in case yours is a little different than mine. All right, so here that fusible fleece is on those. And now we are going to cut out some corners because we're going to box the corners. So you're going to line these up. I do them both 2 at a time, just so they're nice and even. And I am going to mark a 2-inch square in the bottom corner of this. So I'm just going to put my 2 inches here, line it up here and here, and I'm going to draw just mark it out, and I'm going to do that on this side too. Make sure it's still lined up. It's more important that you line it up when you cut these pieces out so they're even. So you're just going to mark that. Okay, now you definitely want them even now because we're going to cut these corners out. And you can use a rotary cutter, or I just use some really good fabric scissors. Alright, you can toss those, keep them, whatever you want to do, and you're going to do the same thing with the lining fabric. Alright, so here are your pieces. The first thing we're going to do is sew together with right sides facing the 2 outer pieces. So we're going to line those up on top of each other. And we are going to sew along this edge, and this edge. I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so this, and this. Leave these corners open. Alright, so here's this one, and you can see the corners are open. We're going to do something with those in a minute. And now you're going to do the same thing with one major difference on the lining fabric. You're going to line these up, right sides together, like so. You are going to sew here, here, and on this side, you're going to sew part of the way up, and you're going to leave about a 2-inch gap. That's very important because that's how you turn this bag right sides out. And you're going to definitely want to back stitch there, and you're going to leave that 2-inch gap, and then sew, the rest of the way. Alright, so here you can see it. There's your opening with the nice back stitching on each edge so it doesn't tear open. You can see that's where we're going to turn it right sides out later. Now we're going to box these corners, and it's very easy. You're going to pull these apart. Show you one more time. And you're just going to see how even, you're going to line those up, match that seam, and I actually am going to open up that seam like so, and you're going to pin. I like to make sure the seam is equal. Let me move that up a little bit, and this is all straight across, and you can pin or clip, whichever you like. And then you are going to sew, again using that 1/2 inch seam allowance, across that line. Okay, and you're going to do that on this corner, and you're also going to do it on this section as well. So you're going to box all 4 corners like that. Alright, so here are the corners. They're boxed, and this is the outer side, and this is the one you're going to flip this right sides out, and then you can really see how the corners are boxed. I mean, it's already really cute. Just the way it is. It's like a little square, but of course it's not done yet. But there it is. It stands up nicely. And then what you're going to do, next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark where the handles should be. So we're going to get our ruler, and you are going to mark, you're going to measure from that seam, the corner seam, and I measure in about 2 1/4 inches. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, but I think that kind of is like the perfect distance from, so you're going to put your ruler right on that seam, and then you're going to mark at 2 1/4 inches. It's a little mark so you can see it, And I'm going to do it on this side as well. And I'm going to flip it over and do it on this side too, because you have 2 handles on this bag. Alright, so you've marked where your handles are going to be, and now it's time to insert this outer section. I'm going to just punch out those corners a little bit more. And you're going to put that into the lining, and you're going to line up all those seams. Alright, so I have put the outside into the lining, and they are right sides facing, and now I'm going to pin. And so I want to pin, first I'm going to pin at the both seams, okay? Because we still have to put the handles in before we can sew this anymore. So I just pin here and here. And then I'm going to go around to the other side. I open up those seams like so and like so. And now it's time to add the handles. So, remember those marks we did a little bit ago? I'm going to pull this back so you can see it better. You're going to use those marks as your placement. You're going to take your handle and you're going to place it. So this is the mark right here. There's my mark where my finger is. Let me use this pencil maybe. There's my mark. Put this towards the outside, put this strap towards the outside and pin it. I just line it up with that mark. And then you're going to put it in between the 2 layers. Okay, and you're going to swoop it up and put it to the outside of this. Here's the other mark. Here's the second mark, okay? So there's my mark. And here's that strap, and you're going to pin that, and this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to pull this back a little bit so you can see it. It's really hard to see, but this is what it should look like, okay? Maybe you can see it better like so. There. You see how it swoops up? All right, and then you're going to cover those back up because that should be in between the 2 layers. I know that sounds weird, but that's where it goes. And then you're going to just pin, line it up on the top edge. I'll just put 1 pin in for now, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, whew. So this is all pinned. Everything kind of lines up. I kind of eyeball it before I sew it just to make sure everything sort of lines up. You can kind of see where the ends of the straps are in there. I know it's hard to see on the camera, but I just want to make sure everything's lined up. And then you're going to take this over to your machine, and you're going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the top, all the way around, making sure not to sew it closed by accident. I forgot to add, when you go over the straps in here, you want to backstitch. Just go over them twice or something like that, just to get a little more security. Okay. So here it is. There's that seam allowance on the top, and now we're going to do the magic. Find that opening. It's on the other side, and you're going to turn this right sides out. And it is fidgety because there's a lot of sort of thickness in that fusible fleece. So you just got to take your time and work at it. Okay, whew. That is always a pain. I'm not going to lie, that is a pain to do. Alright, so there's your lining. Don't forget you still have that hole in there, that little hole where you used to turn it right sides out. You want to stitch that closed. The nice thing is it sort of automatically forms a little fold over, but like a seam for you. And basically what you're going to do, see how it's folded over already? Disregard that little piece of thread. And anyway, you're just going to sew that with a very scant 1/8 of an inch All right, so that is all sealed up, and now you're going to push that lining in. Now I give this a nice press. I line up that top edge, and what I'll do is I'll line this all up so it's a nice even edge on the top. Looks nice and crisp, and then I will press it. And then lastly, there are a lot of loose threads here. Lastly, what I'm going to do after I've pressed it is I'm going to sew one more time around the top edge, a scant top stitch, 1/8 of an inch around. Not only does it help secure the handles a little bit more, I think it adds a nice finish to it. You do not have to do that. It's just an optional thing. Alright, so I did that little top stitching around the edge. I'm going to pull it up close to the camera so you can see. It adds not only a little decoration, you could use a decorative stitch if you wanted, gives it a little more security, and it helps keep that lining in too. Here is my tote bag. I'll be honest, of the 6 bags I'm showing you today, this is hands down my favorite. It's a little bit trickier to make, but it is absolutely adorable. And I think you'll like it too. There you go, you can see it better. Alright, now we're going to make that fun little gift card holder. Love this project too, and I've used this a lot. I actually sold some of these at a craft fair. They're really easy to make. So this is what you're going to need. You're going to need 2 pieces of fabric, one for the outer part, which is this Christmas tree, and these are 9 inches by 6 inches. This is going to be for sort of the inside. You will not see this, so I just used a piece of muslin. If you have an old piece of scrap fabric, that's perfect for this. And then you need a piece of thin batting. You don't want it too thick for this project. And then what you're going to do, well, I'm not going to get to that yet. So that's, the batting is 6 by 9, and these 2 pieces of fabric are 6 by 9. You're also going to need a piece of fabric for the lining. So this will be seen when you open up the gift card holder. And this will measure 8 by 5. So that's, you'll cut that 8 by 5. So that's for the lining. If you have it, an embroidery hoop or something else that's going to give you like a circular shape, because you're going to do that when we finish it off for the top, you know, when the flap goes over, it's a circular shape. I just use this 6-inch embroidery hoop, but you can use a plate or whatever. And the last thing you're going to need, if you have it, is some hook and loop closure. I cut it about, I'm going to guess, this is for fabric, so it actually has like a permanent glue on the back. And I cut mine about a little over 1.5 inches. You can make it smaller. They have little dots you can use. First thing you're going to do is you're going to line up. You're going to lay down that piece of scrap fabric on the bottom. And again, you will not see this, so it doesn't matter how it looks. And then you're going to put that batting on top. And then the nice outer fabric on the top. Line these all up together, and then you're going to quilt it as desired. And I'm just going to do maybe some easy stripes or something, you know, just lines down. Alright, so here it is quilted. So I didn't quilt it very heavily. Normally I probably would actually do much more narrow quilting. I just wanted to do this quickly for this video. And you can see, the other thing I would not normally use is black thread on this pink. I would like to show it, but I wanted you to be able to see what I'm doing. And I'm notoriously bad in my videos about using threads that blend, and then you can't see my work. So today I'm using black. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to trim this down to 8 by 5 inches. Okay, so here it is trimmed down, and now you need that lining fabric, that one, that red that we used before, and now we're going to line these up right sides together. And they should both be 8 by 5 inches. And just sort of even them out, and then I'm going to pin those layers together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my embroidery hoop, and I'm going to line it up on one of the top edges. In fact, I'm going to do it this way. This is directional fabric, so I want it to be the right direction. So yeah, this is what I want. You got to play with it a little bit. You might want to double check it. And then what I do is I am just going to eyeball this to make sure it's even on both sides. And I think it is. And then I'm going to take a marking tool and mark it just on the edge here. There you go. You can see a little bit better here. The bright light makes it harder to see. And then you're going to cut across both layers, the lining and this. That's why I pin it. You might even want to pin it a little bit more. And you're just going to cut away so you have that nice sort of circular flap at the top. And then what you're going to do, and I'm actually going to flip this over, it's probably a little bit lighter on the eyes. You're going to sew around the whole piece except, and this is where I think I'm going to put a clip. On the one side, you want to leave an opening so you can flip this right sides out. And you're going to backstitch there, and then you're just sew all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so you can see where I sewed across around the whole side. You can see that black thread, and I left that gap open. And now we're going to clip those two corners, making sure you don't clip accidentally through that thread. That just helps reduce the bulk a little bit. And now you're going to flip this right sides out. And again, there's always a little tricky doing this, but hopefully it goes well on the camera. I'm always a little nervous because when I film this, sometimes I've had it before where it's ripped. You definitely want to you know what, I forgot to tell you that, I think. You want to backstitch there and there. Right, so I've turned it inside out, and now I'm running this chopstick in the corners. I'll probably run it around the top. I just use a chopstick. If you have a special tool, you can use that. It just helps, even your finger, you know, you get the idea. You just want it nice. And what I'm going to do next is fold over. Here's that opening where we excuse me, where we pulled out the turned it inside out, right sides out together. Right sides out. My goodness, I can't talk. This is the 6th video I'm filming for this one long video, so I'm kind of tired. And then you're just going to use that 1/8 inch seam allowance right there to close up that hole. But I'm going to press this first, just so it makes it a little bit nicer. All right, and so this is the lining side, and from the lining side, this is all sewn up now together. Again, I normally would never use that black thread, and I'm just going to trim off these little threads here. And you're going to take your ruler, you're going to measure 5 1/4 inches from the bottom, which would be the straight edge there, and you're going to mark. And I used a water-soluble pen, or not water, excuse me, it's disappearing theoretically. And just make sure it's all even, you know, how you understand. You want it to look nice so it's even from the top too. And you're just going to draw that line. Okay, so you can see it, and hopefully it disappears soon. And then you're going to bring up this bottom like so, up to that line. Okay, so it's going to go up to that line, and then you're going to clip on both sides like so. So once this is clipped and you have it the way you like it and you're happy with the way it looks, you are going to start at one corner, back stitching. I usually use maybe an 1/8 inch seam allowance. So all the way down, all the way across the bottom, and then all the way up that side. And then make sure you back stitch here and here, because that's where the card goes in. So back stitch on both these corners, but go around all 3 sides. Alright, so I forgot to tell you, you don't just sew around these 3 edges, you sew around the whole thing. I can't believe I forgot to tell you that. Here you can see it. There you can see it on the other side. It looks not so great with that black thread, and I had some problems with my machines. I will say this is very thick to sew, especially there on those 2 edges. And again, I'll say it one more time, I would not normally wear the black use the black thread. So this is not going to keep, I probably won't keep this one, but I just wanted to show you how to make them. The other one that I showed you, that I'll show you in a minute, looks much better. The other thing, and I just discovered this, is I accidentally marked the outside before I marked the lining. And even though that pen said disappearing, it is indeed not disappearing, and it's not. So I'm going to have to try to get some water off of this. Although honestly, I'm not going to keep this one because it didn't turn out as nicely as I hoped it would. But it does make a really cute gift card holder, and I'll show you that in a second. The last thing we need to do is take the stickers. I might make this a little bit smaller. You're going to take the backing off of this hook and loop closure. And you are just gonna, I take the backing off first. I leave them together so they're pieced together, okay? And I kind of center it like so. And then I just fold that over so that's centered. And then I'm going to take, before I close it, I'm going to take off this backing. And then just very carefully fold that over. Try to make sure it's all even Steven. Push it down. And I actually hold it down for a minute or two. Not a minute or two, but a few seconds just to get it nice and firm. Okay. And then now you have that, and it should stick. This was made for fabric. So there is the little gift card holder. I'm going to get one that looks a lot better than this one, just so you do get an idea that they actually do turn out really cute. I'm kind of embarrassed. It is a great little gift card holder, and I'll show you that in a second. So here's the Christmas one. Here's my business card, and I'm just going to put that in there. It fits in nicely. Great for gift cards. I mean, seriously, who wouldn't love to get this under the tree or for a birthday or something like that? But let me just show you one that actually is really cute. You will see I did a lot heavier quilting on this one, and I used super thin batting, and I love this one. This one I actually use all the time. I take it places, it's great, but that's what they look like. And I used thread, as you can see, that was very similar to the fabric. So that's what it looks like. And here again, though, is the Christmas one. I hope you liked all of the bags. Which one was your favorite? I know the mini tote bag is hands down my favorite. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but that one definitely is my favorite. Let me know in the comments which one you like best and if you're going to make any of them. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I have my own website. And that, although reminds me, all of these tutorials are found on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.